Oh yes, satisfactory, highly satisfactory, I'm sure. Maria Dmitrievna has been telling me how well our troops are doing, and much credit it does to them. I must say, and the people too, they've taken to the streets, and they won't obey any orders my own maid has turned against me. If things could go on as they are, they'll soon be after our blood. You can't walk down the street, but what bothers me is them. Please, cousin, just do me a favor, said the princess. Give me orders for me to be taken to Petersburg. Say what you would about me. I could not love under Bonaparte, my dear cousin. That's quite enough. Where do you get your information from? You've got things the wrong way around. I will submit to you, Napoleon. Other orders may do as they like. If you won't do this for me, but I will. I'll give the orders straight away. The princess was obviously quite put on having no one to vent her anger on her. Muttering under her breath, she perched on the edge of a chair. But what you've heard is not right, said Peter. Everything's quiet downtown, and there's no danger. Look what have just been reading. Peter showed her the posters. The Count says here he'll stake his life on it. The enemy will never set foot in Moscow. Oh yes, you and your Count, the princess spat out spitefully. He's a hypocrite and a villain. He was the one who brought them out onto the streets. Didn't he write the stupid posters that they should grab the world and his wife by the scruff of a neck and dump them in the lockup? Stupid man, honor and glory, he says he to anyone who does look where it's got us all. It's fine talk. Mikhail, what's he called? Maria Dmitrievna told me she was almost shrugging up by the mob for speaking a few words of French. Well, I know how it is, but you to take things too seriously, said Pierre, dealing out his card for a game of patience. That the hand did come out, but rather than going off to join the army, Pierre stayed in Moscow. That was getting emptier by the day, and his mood was the same, a mixture of excitement, indecision, and delicious dread of impending doom. By the following evening, the princess had gone, and Pierre had came in to report that the money needed for the equipment of this regiment could not be raised without selling one of his estates. He did his best to persuade Pierre that all these silly ideas about a regiment would be a ruin of him. Pierre could hardly conceal a smile as he listened to the steward. Well, go on. Sell it, he said. It can't be helped. There's no there's no going back on what I said. The worse things I got, especially things that mattered to him. The happier Pierre was, the cleaner it became. The long-awaited catastrophe was almost upon them. Hardly any of Pierre's acquaintances were still in town. Julie had just gone. Princess Margaret had gone. Of the people closest to him, only the Rostovs were left, but Pierre didn't want to go see them. The day for a little relaxation, Pierre drove to the village of St. Petersburg to have a look at a huge balloon that was being built by Aajw for a devastating use against the enemy, and the test balloon due to the launching the following day. The balloon wasn't quite ready, but Pierre found out it was being built with the Tsar's approval. The Tsar had written to Count Rumskin in French as it follows: as soon as Count Rumskin in Tsar's, but Pierre found out it was being built by Tsar's approval. The Tsar had written to Count Rumskin in French as follows: as soon as Aajw is ready to select a crew of good, clever men for his gondola, and his dispatch a coroner to General Kutuzov to give him a due warning. I have told him about this. Please ensure that Aajw is strongly advised to be careful when he comes down for the first time, least to go off course and fall into the hands of the enemy. It is essential that he coordinate his movements with those in the commander-in-chief. On the way home, Pierre was driving through the Bonnie Square in the crowd of the execution. So he stopped and got out his carriage. A French chief accused was being flogged. The flogging was over. The executioner was at the flogging bench trying to scout a man with red sideburns, blue stockings, a green jacket striped off his back, who was moaning grievously. Another criminal, frail, thin, and pale, was waiting for his turn to judge by their faces. Both of them were Frenchmen. Pierre shoved his way through the crowd, looking every bit as terrified as hystically at the enemy Frenchmen. What was happening? Who are they? What have they done? He kept asking, but the crowd, clerks, tradesmen, shopkeepers, peasants, women in cloaks and jackets, were so afraid by what was happening at the place of execution that nobody answered. The scoutman got to his feet, winking, twisted his shoulders, and tried the best with a show of bravery to pull on his jacket without looking around at everybody. But suddenly his lips trembled and burst into tears, furious with himself as sometimes happens with grown men, however full-blooded. There were loud comments from the crowd as people sifted their feelings of sympathy, or so peers like to say. So some chief belonging to a prince. Hey, Russian sauce a little bit sharp for Froggy makes you wince a little bit, said Winkle Clark, standing near Prince Pierre. At the moment, the Frenchman burst into tears. The clerk looked around, obviously expecting their applause. Some people did laugh, but the others, so dismayed, they could not take their eyes off the executioner, who was in the process of stripping the second Frenchman. Pierre was choking. He screwed up his face, turned away sharply, went back to the carriage, got in, and all the time murmur under his breath. As they drove on, he got his shudders several times and yelled out so loud that the coachman asked what he wanted. "Where are you going?" Pierre shouted to the coachman as he went into the street. "He told me to go to the Governor General's," answered the coachman. "You stupid idiot," roared Pierre, a man who was rarely abused his coachman. "I told you to drive me home. Get going, you blockhead." And under his breath he muttered, "I gotta leave this town this very day." It was the sight of the tortured Frenchman and all the crowd, all simply could not stay in Moscow. He much set off that very day to join the army, and as he saw it, neither he must have told the coachman, or the coachman ought to have known. It was the sight of a tortured Frenchman, and the crowd, all the place of execution, had brought Pierre to the final destination. He simply could not stay in Moscow. He must set off that very day to join the army, and as he saw it, neither he must have told the coachman, or the coachman ought to have known. When he got home, Pierre told his impotent head coachman Monzix, who was a famous throughout Moscow, that he was leaving for